There's a shift happening in local media right now, not a collapse, but kind of a recalibration. According to the latest Local Media Consortium Industry Insight Survey, most publishers are still holding steady. 72% report that digital revenue was either up or flat in 2025, and the vast majority expect that to continue into this year. But underneath that stability, something important is changing. The number of publishers who say subscriptions are a top challenge has surged a whopping 383% year over year. Not because subscription revenue has disappeared, but because growth is getting harder, more uncertain, and more expensive to sustain. This is an interesting interview today. And to unpack this report, I'd like to bring in a close friend. Can I call you a close friend, Fran?
Yes, you can, Mike. Yes, we've known each other for years.
Many years. Well, I don't know. You're not as old as me, but years. Fran is the CEO of the Local Media Consortium, LMC, where she works with hundreds of media organizations to develop strategies that drive both revenue growth and audience engagement. Since joining LMC in 2018, you've been the center of efforts to help publishers leverage new technology, new partnerships, and new business models to stay competitive. Fran, it's great. I don't know if you've been on the program before. Have we ever been on this show?
I have not. I have been in your newsletter many times, Mike, but this is a first time we've done this interview. So thank you for the opportunity.
A mover and shaker we have not had on this program. You know, it's funny, when you get to be on it 5 times, I'm going to have to get a jacket. For people like Jarvis, you know,
Yeah.
or Hendricks, you know, your cohort in crime at the LMC. But this will be your first. We'll keep counting as we do it. So, Fran, stick around. We're going to break down what's really driving revenue in local media right now, including the top growth categories where publishers are actually making money and where the biggest risks are hiding. Plus, Fran's going to share what she sees across hundreds of media organizations about what's really working and what's not. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Walter Hussman. Our family has been in the news business for over 100 years. Journalism includes 2 parts, reporting the news and providing opinions. But in recent years, there's been too much opinion appearing in news reporting. This has eroded public trust in news reporting to the lowest level of any U.S. institution. To address this, we started a nonprofit, the Center for Integrity in News Reporting.
The Center for Integrity in News Reporting, CFINR, is on a mission to rebuild public trust in journalism, one newsroom and one classroom at a time. We champion the effort to have news organizations and journalism schools create and prominently display their own clear, concise statements of core journalistic values. Learn more by visiting the Center for Integrity and News Reporting site at cfinr.org.
All right, Fran, we're in an airplane. We'll stay at 30,000 feet. What surprised you the most in this survey?
I think that there is, as you said, a little stability, at least on the digital side of publishers' businesses. I would say, based on conversations we've had with members, which we meet with our members multiple times a month, that's kind of inconsistent, depending on, you know, whether they're broadcast or newspaper, whether they're in a small market or a large market. So I would say the results are totally dependent on the actual news organization, but the fact that overall digital revenue seems to be at least holding steady is a pretty big surprise.
All right, but let's get to the elephant in the room, the 383 number. I mean, that just stuck out. And again, in the report, it doesn't say that subscription revenue is down 383%. It says that number, when you ask, is this a major challenge, keeping paid subscribers, the number has just skyrocketed. Again, this has been not verified, but we've been getting more and more nuggets of this through EMP reporting. The Medill local Chicago study that they claimed could be a benchmark. What was the number, Fran? I think they said only 15% of respondents 18 plus said they're willing to pay for news in today's society.
That's correct.
Do you think this is maybe just your opinion or the LMC's, but, you know, Have we overestimated as an industry the consumer willingness to pay for content?
Well, a couple of things, Mike. One, if you look back into the glory days of newspapers when we had a very large subscriber base, it was still only, 20 to maybe 30% of the population in a market that was willing to subscribe. Everybody else bought single copy or pass along copies. So it's not surprising that we have reached a plateau because there has always been only a certain percentage of, people in a market that are willing to pay for a subscription to news. You layer on top of that just the overall subscription fatigue that's going on because of subscriptions to streaming channels and Uber and Amazon. I just read an article yesterday that subscription fatigue is not only happening with media companies, but it's happening kind of across the board. People are looking, with the economic conditions as they are, people are looking at what they're subscribing to and making decisions about what the most important thing is to them and canceling and terminating some of the other ones.
All right, so let's talk about diversification. On this very program, just before you, we had David Carey, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs at Hearst, talked about the big Hearst letter that came out, where Hearst is showing massive growth in revenue, but it ain't coming from subscriber money and it ain't coming from ad revenue money. It's coming from other streams. The annual letter stated that nearly 60% of Hearst profits came not from media, the newspapers, magazines, or television, but from B2B data, software, and analytics businesses. Are you seeing that through this data as well, that maybe it's time we believe in news, we believe in our mission, but we're going to really have to find other revenue streams to support that newsroom?
I think we constantly need to be exploring new revenue streams. A lot of our publishers are having success with newsletters and monetizing through subscriptions and also through advertising. And you saw in the survey that cross-platform, monetization is also a big priority, looking at how do we maximize social and streaming and CTV. So that we can make sure that we've got multiple revenue streams that we're looking at. We're also exploring, content licensing in this world of AI, where our content is getting scraped and used without attribution or monetization. We are looking at commercial ways to make sure that our publishers are getting a fair value exchange for the use of their content. So we are exploring both ways that we can work with LLMs on the consumer side or B2C side, and also on the B2B side. There seems to be, new solution providers popping up in both of those sectors. So we are exploring both. The $1 million question is, what is our content worth? What are LLMs willing to pay? That I think is still being contemplated not only by publishers but also by the LLMs. We're meeting with Google Gemini and working on a call with Microsoft and Amazon, as well as talking with third parties in the space like BMI and Tollbit and RSL. We don't know where the solution is going to land, but so we're kind of placing our bets and talking with a lot of people to try to figure out what that next model looks like. And at the LMC, we're always looking at commercial opportunities to provide more long-term sustainable solutions. And we think, based on conversations that we've had, it appears as if everybody is focused on finding a solution, and the platforms that we're talking with understand the importance of local news and that we need to figure out a sustainable environment.
News still drives the audience. I mean, that's what it's news. And you feel that everywhere you turn right now, that even public media is adding reporters, realizing that we may not have a sustainable model yet, but if I don't grab the audience with what they want, I got no choice. You see what I'm saying? I mean, local TV is investing more in order to survive when there's that, I believe, that eventual break between the networks, if you see what I'm saying. So the strategy is still to garner audience, but the revenue strategy against that audience is still not there. And this is, okay, I got to ask you, as someone who's been in this industry for years, isn't that a little scary? I mean, isn't this where we've been for, and we haven't found it yet. Do you see one thing permeating through here that gives you hope that there is a sustainable model coming?
Well, I think what disrupted the industry is the fact that we don't control the distribution channels anymore. Um, the actual aspect of what's going on now with AI does provide me with some optimism that if we can make sure that as our content is being used, we are being compensated for by the distribution channels, because our content is so important to their business model. I do have some optimism that there could be a better and more fair value exchange for our content. So if we could, have a content monetization of revenue stream as well as advertising and subscriptions, that I think would, provide us with the best shot at building a sustainable model than we've had in years.
I've always saw two solutions that I keep praying for, hoping for. I mean, I believe, as you do, that we will eventually get compensation. I think it's going to, I mean, I started as a disc jockey. I remember having to write down every record I played like once every 3 months for BMI or ASCAP. So the composer of a song, not the band, the one-hit wonders maybe lost money, but the person who wrote that song you're still listening today in a grocery store is getting compensated because, and it goes back to the days of piano rolls, if you really want to go back in the whole, but again, if we get that compensation, the other thing, and I want your opinion on this, and it doesn't have to do with the report, but initiatives that LMC I know has worked on over the years, is the value of that news audience. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's always affluent, educated, influential consumers. And haven't you tried at the LMC to kind of herd the cats of the industry together where we have our own desk and we get the true CPMs we need programmatically for that content across the entire ecosystem? How is that going? Is that still, because if that ever happened, God forbid, could you imagine a 5 or 6% CPM, $5 or $6 CPM on our content? How that could make it more sustainable?
We are working diligently on a project called NewsPass ID that is, most plainly put, it's a local news ad network in the programmatic world. And we believe that there's a difference in content, because right now, news content and all other forms of content are kind of seen as the same in programmatic channels. So we think there is a differentiation between credible news content and all the rest of the information that is available to monetize through programmatic channels. So we believe we can build a kind of a quality audience channel within programmatic that is going to be appealing to advertisers. And what really opened up the opportunity for us is when Google talked about deprecating the cookie, which didn't happen, but it opened up the door for people experimenting with creating their own IDs, which we have created our own ID through NewsPass ID, and now we are starting to go to market. And we're seeing, quite a bit of interest from brands and agencies and advertisers because they are starting to understand that there's, an impression on a site that is made for advertising is far different than an impression on a site that's reaching an actual local news audience, which, to your point, is usually, a higher, more valued demographic.
And that sponsored, whatever you want to call it, native content even looks better. It has a better authority when it's surrounded by credible content. There's just so much to be said for the news we produce. And these two issues always bug me because then we get fair compensation for the work we're doing. And maybe we could be, that could be the easiest solution. All right. Am I missing anything else from the report? We're getting near the end of our journey. One big takeaway was, ad growth is steady, and I don't want to say reboundingly positive, but publishers are positive that will remain, and subscription growth is a challenge. Anything else sticking out that we missed in this conversation, Fran?
I think the trend that is really interesting amongst all of our members, because we have newspaper, radio, TV, and online only publishers. And one of the things that's interesting is everybody is experimenting in every form of media. So, broadcasters are starting to do podcasts, which is audio, and newspapers are starting to do video. So, cross-platform content creation and distribution is really, high on the priority list of all of our publishers, regardless of what their legacy business is. So we're kind of seeing that, every local media company is experimenting with, how they can, create content in a certain format and then easily adapt it into other types of formats for distribution in on different platforms. So this whole idea about cross-platform content creation and distribution, I think, is a trend to watch. We're seeing, examples of that across our membership.
Okay. And you may have just stated it, but I gotta, our audience is largely local news publishers. Okay. So, and you've got the background, plus you've got the data from these reports, plus you've got the information from the brainiacs that are a part of the LMC, some of the smartest people in the industry. If you were running a local media company today, okay, get in the chair, you decide, I'm quitting LMC, I'm going to run that media company in this town. Is there one major shift you would make now in 2026 to make sure you are in the game and you could find that sustainability?
Well, the first thing that I would do is I would get involved in the community, talk to community leaders, talk to local businesses, get back involved in the grassroots, communication with the community that I'm in, and try to get as much support and direct audience participation at the local level while I'm working on cross-platform distribution. But I think getting back to the basics of who knows our community better than the local newspaper or the local TV or radio station. We need to get back to connecting with our communities, being that source of news and information for our communities, and raise the level of awareness and importance with everybody in our community.
The report is called Local Media Insights, 2025 Industry Survey. It comes to us through the Local Media Consortium, and unpacking it for us today is Fran Wills, CEO of the LMC. Thanks, Fran, for your time. Let's not make this your only visit to the program, Fran. Will you come back?
Mike, I would love to come back, and I want to thank you for all you do. I read your newsletter every morning, and I think you do a great service to the industry, keeping everybody up to date on what's going on. So proud to be, a partner and, part of the overall ecosystem, and, wish local media a very bright and sustainable future.
Thanks, Fran. Have a great day.